I had never felt so drained before in my life. The day had been long, overwhelming, and full of so many emotions that by the time I stepped off the bus near our street, I felt like I was walking in a fog. My body moved automatically, but my mind wasn't really there. I was replaying the events of the day, trying to process everything while also fighting back the heaviness in my chest. It was as if I was walking underwater. Every step slow, my eyes glazed, my heart weighed down with exhaustion. The neighborhood looked the same as it always did. Rows of houses, familiar lawns, the sound of kids riding their bikes in the distance, but I couldn't seem to focus. I barely noticed when one of our neighbors waved at me. I must have given a half-hearted smile, but truthfully, I couldn't recall. My mind was too clouded. By the time I reached our driveway, I felt my knees nearly buckle. I leaned against the side of the house for a moment, just breathing, telling myself that I only needed to make it through the door. Home. That was the word I kept repeating to myself. Home. Safe. Quiet. A place to let go. But before I could gather myself enough to go inside, the front door opened. There was my dad, standing in the doorway. He looked at me in a way only a father could, his brow furrowed with both concern and warmth. He must have been waiting because he usually never stood at the door like that. Maybe he had heard my footsteps. Maybe he just knew something was wrong. Honey. His voice was steady, but full of care. Are you all right? The moment he spoke, something inside me cracked. I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to notice me, to see the weight I was carrying. My throat tightened, and I shook my head ever so slightly, unable to form words. Without hesitation, my dad stepped outside and gently guided me into the house. He didn't ask questions right away. He didn't push. He just put his hand on my shoulder, steadying me, and led me into the living room. The familiar scent of home, the faint aroma of coffee, the clean laundry folded on the couch, hit me all at once, and I felt my defenses slipping away. He sat me down on the couch, then quietly went to the kitchen. I could hear him moving around, opening cabinets, the sound of water filling a glass. He came back and handed it to me. Drink this first, he said softly. I didn't realize how parched I was until the cool water touched my lips. I drank slowly, my hands trembling slightly as I held the glass. Dad sat down next to me, not too close, but close enough for me to feel his presence. He didn't overwhelm me with questions. Instead, he simply said, "It looks like today was tough. You don't have to tell me everything right now. Just sit with me a while." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, and for a long moment, we just sat in silence. The TV was off, the house quiet except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. His calm presence felt like an anchor in the storm I was drowning in. Finally, after a while, I found myself whispering, "Dad, I don't even know where to start." My voice broke on the last word, and before I could stop myself, tears began to spill down my cheeks. He reached for the box of tissues on the coffee table and handed it to me without saying a word. I wiped my face, feeling embarrassed for breaking down like a child, but when I glanced at him, there was no judgment in his eyes, just patience and love. "Start wherever you can," he said gently. "Sometimes the words come easier once you let the first ones out." And so I did. Slowly, haltingly, I began to share everything that had piled up that day. The pressures at school, the way I felt overlooked, the little moments that chipped away at me until I was left feeling empty. I didn't even realize how much I had been holding in until it all came pouring out. Dad listened. That was the most powerful part of it. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush me. He just listened, nodding every so often, his eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, I let out a long breath, as though I had finally put down a load I'd been carrying for miles. "You've been holding so much inside," he said quietly. "No wonder you felt so heavy today." I nodded, tears still streaking down my cheeks. I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought maybe I should just deal with it myself. He shook his head. "You never have to deal with everything on your own. Not while I'm here. That's what family is for. That's what I'm here for." Those words broke through the last of my walls, and I leaned into him. For the first time that day, I let myself feel the comfort of being cared for, of being safe. Dad wrapped his arm around my shoulder, holding me close, and I felt the warmth of his steady presence. We stayed like that for a while, and slowly, I began to feel the fog lift. My body, once tense and heavy, began to relax. My breathing evened out. I realized that sometimes it wasn't about fixing the problems right away, but about having someone who cared enough to sit with you through them. Later that evening, Dad made us dinner, nothing fancy, just grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, but it felt like the most comforting meal I had ever eaten. We sat together at the table, laughing softly at little things, and by the time I went to bed that night, I felt lighter than I had all day. That was the moment I understood something I had always known deep down but had forgotten in the chaos of life. My dad was always going to be my safe place. No matter how lost I felt, no matter how overwhelming the world seemed, he would always be there to bring me back, to remind me that I wasn't alone. The memory of that day stays with me. Whenever I feel myself starting to spiral, whenever the weight of the world seems too much, I think of my dad sitting next to me on the couch, listening, holding me steady without needing to fix everything. That is what family means. That is what love looks like. And sometimes, that is all we really need.